Welcome to the Rising Entrepreneurs Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and their journey. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I am the co-host of the show, and for those of you who have not heard this show before, you can check out our archives. We've got some great interviews with smart CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs of all kinds of companies. And my background, I'm also the co-founder of Rise 25, where we help connect B2B business owners with their ideal prospects. And this is part of our EO San Francisco series, profiling interesting entrepreneurs around the Bay Area who are building engaging, interesting companies. And my guest here today is Pramod Dabir, and he is the co-founder and CEO of West Agile Labs. He's got a number of different companies, actually, including Make Sense Technologies, which is interesting. It's a SaaS company in the laundromat space. He's also got an investment fund as well. He's got a background as an investor. And so we'll talk all about his background and history as an entrepreneur. And of course, if you're interested in EO San Francisco, learning more about this amazing community of founders and entrepreneurs and CEOs around the Bay Area, you can go to eosf.org and learn all about what we do and membership options for you. All right, Pramod, it's great having you here, and I'm excited to dive into your background, your history. First of all, I'd love to ask people about how they got into entrepreneurship, whether they were doing lemonade stands as a kid and things along those lines. You, kind of like me, actually, bi-coastal, you're born in Virginia. I was born in Washington, D.C., ended up in California. I ended up in Los Angeles. You ended up in the Bay Area. But you said that as a kid, you were thinking about grocery delivery as a young age. This is pre-Webvan. For those of you who know the name Webvan, that was kind of like early days of grocery delivery. The .com era didn't work out, but you were like maybe 15 years ahead of your time if you're thinking about grocery delivery early as a kid.
No, thanks for having me. Yes, that's right. I would have come up with all different ideas when I was a kid. Things that were much bigger than what I could build or handle when I was younger. But it was always fun thinking about ways to make things more efficient or more streamlined, leverage technology. I started building out a website for grocery delivery when I was a kid, and got into kind of coding websites young, and so it was a lot of fun. I mean, it's a lot of fun kind of thinking about these things, and that's what I'd say. As I've gotten older, constantly thinking about different ideas and opportunities to jump into and get involved in.
And you would go out, you had a business club you were a part of, and you bought In-N-Out burgers and then brought them down and sold them as a fundraiser, I guess?
Yeah, that's right. So different ways to make money and arbitrage and figure out how to have some quick wins when it comes to those types of things. And so, we had a business club that we were raising money for. And, one of the things that if you're raising money, you're allowed to actually sell some stuff, on school grounds, assuming it's within reason. And so we had an idea to go out and just buy a bunch of In-N-Out burgers and then basically, arbitrage that and sell it for more, and raised a bunch of money at school. And it was pretty cool. It was a lot of fun.
That's cool. Now you end up going to University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, studying electrical engineering. You got there in part because of tennis. You were really into competitive tennis in high school. But that school's got an amazing history and background in engineering and history of the internet. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like being there?
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, the program there is excellent. The school is a lot of fun. It's fun being what I talk about is like being a big state school, which was just a lot of people and sports, and it was really really exciting. But then you kind of have this this engineering program, which is top 5 in the country that you're in and kind of nerding out when it comes to a lot of that stuff. So it was just a really cool experience all around. And I was lucky enough to play tennis there as well. So kind of got the athlete experience and kind of the way they treated athletes there as well, which was a lot of fun. So it was just a cool opportunity and a lot of history there, a lot of incredible entrepreneurs and folks that have built amazing things, coming from those programs. And you see all the buildings there with all the names of different people. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I had the best 4 years of my life there. It was amazing.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Mark Andreessen, who invented one of the first web browsers, one of the most acclaimed venture capitalists and history of Silicon Valley started from there. Is that correct?
Yep. He's a U of I grad. That's right.
Yeah. Well, talk to me a little about you end up going into working for Goldman Sachs. It turns out you were there during the whole real estate meltdown, the economic meltdown. 06, 07, 08 is when you were there. What was that experience like?
It was wild. The first year is when I was there in '06. I mean, it was so busy, and there were so many deals that were happening, IPOs, sales of businesses, everything. I mean, I was working 100 hours a week for a year, a little over a year, just nonstop, and it was tough. I mean, I missed my sister's high school graduation, and she lived 45 minutes away, and I couldn't make it down because I was stuck on a deal. Just stuff like that. It was wild, and then the whole kind of meltdown happened, and shortly after, it was like there was almost like nothing to do, and the folks that at Goldman, they have a 2-year analyst program, which was as a part of, and the first years they actually called it they called it an accelerated 1-year program, essentially making a 2-year program a 1-year program, and they were basically laying people off, and it was pretty nuts, but an incredible experience regardless. I got to really work on a lot of different projects that helped me, from a financial perspective and financial minded thinking, just really get there, which was cool.
Right, because you'd studied engineering and now you're in the world of finance, so that must have been quite an education.
It was, yeah. When I was in engineering, I realized very quickly, like, this is not what I want to be doing for the rest of my life. Like, I wanted to get more into business and business oriented, stuff. And the two paths are investment banking and consulting. If you're kind of trying to get into that world, and I chose the path of banking, and it was a way to kind of get me out of like pure engineering, pure technical stuff, and then and learn a lot more about business and how businesses operate, why they function, what are the challenges, and more from a investment banking side of things, not operationally, but you learn a lot that way.
Yeah. Now, not long after that, you kind of came across an opportunity in early days of like influencer marketing. So you kind of had an idea for a business around the converging worlds of influence, marketing, e-commerce. Talk a little bit about what that was.
Yeah, so kind of right after Goldman, I worked at a private equity fund, and we were investing in a number of different types of companies. And there was a company that we were looking at that was growing. Actually, there were a couple companies that we were looking at that were growing really, really fast in sort of that social selling model. More like that Tupperware sort of model that for selling stuff, so more in person. But I was thinking, how do we take that, digitize it, and actually leverage your influence, with the people that know you and connect with you, whether it be on Facebook or other social media platforms. And so we built out a platform for women to build online virtual boutiques through a kind of stuff, like all and being able to, almost like Pinterest, be able to put together a board of stuff that you like, share it with your friends and Facebook and whatnot, and then earn commission for sales that you generated through your your boutique. And so that's it was an interesting business. We raised some some money, built a team, a product, and kind of went through that whole evolution. And it was a great learning experience. Unfortunately, that was the heyday of e-commerce back in 2011, and it was a lot of companies blew up in that space. But and fashion is very, very difficult. But it we learned a lot. We built a really strong team, which kind of transitioned as well for kind of what we're doing today, which is at West Agile Labs.
So previously we were talking about the idea of grocery delivery, which is a huge idea, tons of capital, big investment. It's, big companies like Amazon are tackling it. What you just described to me sounds like pieces of, as you mentioned, Pinterest. There's like kind of Shopify pieces in there. There's e-commerce pieces in there. So another big idea.
Yeah, another big idea. I mean, it's taking components of what existed, but actually making it making it in a way that was, today you go on Instagram and you see like a woman wearing a shirt, and she's like, oh, I got it here, and you click it and you go, you buy, and then she's getting these referrals, off of the stuff that she's posting. That's all like mainstream today, right? Like that's something that exists now and is very, very normal. We were probably a little early when we were thinking about that and working on that idea. And this is also right when Pinterest was taking off, so we were leveraging Pinterest as well. But yeah, it's a number of different components that were tied to it. We had a dropship model, and today I would say that it's the platforms exist to really make that a lot easier. The technology exists to be able to make that a lot easier as well.
Yeah, back then it was you had to build it out yourself.
Exactly. So back then we did spend quite a bit of capital like building out what I would say was very good technology. Just didn't kind of fit with the product market fit at the time.
What I want to know is, how did those experiences of having these big ideas, it seems like you were a visionary from a young age, how's that affected your approach now to business?
Yeah, I mean, for me now, I mean, I would say it's actually interesting. I would say it's made me simplify things a little bit. Like when I was younger, I had these big ideas, and I want to do all these different things. And I think the last business really, the Boutique, which we're talking about, really did make me think back and say, actually, I want to do something simpler, a little more focused. And so the things that I've explored or kind of gotten into later have had a much more very strategic focused approach to at least from to be able to execute and do better. So the things we were talking about, like the laundry the laundry software business, right?
But yeah, before we get to that, I definitely want to ask you about that. But even before you got to that, you created West Agile Labs, which was kind of a more phenomenally successful. Now you have 400 people working for you, but a more straightforward business model, at least. Simple, done for you. We're going to take on tech projects. We're going to develop them for you. Work for hire, so to speak.
Yep. No, that's right. And so, I kind of came out of the experience of building Boutique, having worked with folks offshore and kind of going through that whole experience being like, man, this can definitely just be done a lot better. And so, we had good processes in place. We had good engineers in place, and we said, let's give this a shot. And that's exactly right. We started out with 4 people. We're like, all right, let's do this. We did good work. We got paid for it, and we got referrals. We kept doing more work, and we hired more people because of it. And then things now are a little bit more complex, but it grew organically, and now we're 10 years old, and so we've got better systems, processes, technology, everything. But it grew in a way that made sense, and it was something that was bite sized, at least at the time when we started, that felt achievable, that we could accomplish, rather than something in such a big scope that we were trying to take over.
So many companies these days, as a result of the pandemic or their own choice, are having to work with remote teams. You've got 400 people that are halfway across the globe from you. You've got people in the US. What has been the secret for you to managing a team like that that's distributed across the globe?
Communications and process, right? Like for us, it's transparency into what everybody is doing, and putting that into putting that in a way that we can look at it on a weekly basis and be like, all right, hey, this is all going well. These are the areas that we need to focus on, and these are the areas that need a lot more improvement, I guess. And so we've spent a lot of time, and we did that actually very early on when we were small, in putting together processes internally that we can actually look at every business, every single project that we're working on a day-to-day basis, and just ensure that, like, hey, things are going well here, or things aren't going well here. And that's needed when working with teams overseas, just so that it's from a management level perspective, you just kind of know where to spend your time. Otherwise, things can get lost over time if you're not talking to people every single day. And so reporting is something that is that we really focus heavily on.
Yeah. Now, I know you have a couple of other businesses. What I want to ask you about is, when you have a company that does work for hire type of work, you tend to be exposed to a lot of different ideas. And when you are an entrepreneur that takes interest in a lot of different things, like you are, like I am, it can be tempting to pursue those different ideas. How have you decided which ones to pursue? Because you have a couple other ideas that you pursued.
Yes. I think most of it has to do around who I'm partnering with. And number one, and then number two is, obviously an idea that is of interest that I can get behind. I've always been interested in just like niche businesses and businesses that kind of tackle problems for a very large market, but kind of I would almost say it's like forgotten markets. And so for me, and I saw a lot of that stuff actually when I worked in private equity, which is actually why I really enjoyed my experience there. It's like I'd go to, some random city in Kansas or something and go visit a company, and you realize like, they're doing, 75 million of revenue and, 20 million of EBITDA growing 30% a year. You're like, who are these people? Like, where did this company come from, and like, what are they doing? And so it just really interesting companies. And so in the same way, I like, it got me really interested in kind of tackling problems in markets that are maybe less, less visual, like, less in the news, and that you
Yeah.
see. Yeah.
All right. So there's two I want to ask about. One is SaaS for laundromats, and the other is a daycare. So how did you get in first, the laundromats business?
Yeah, so the laundromat business was interesting. It actually, my other co-founder, I would say it was his. He kind of came forward with like a problem, which was interesting. And, just kind of talking about, he's living in San Francisco, and we're going in and going down to his laundry machine and putting in 20 quarters to do laundry. He's like, this doesn't make any sense. And so so very quickly, we started having conversations around it. Learning about the industry and the business a little bit more, and we thought about like, hey, what if we build like a hardware solution, which was kind of where we started, but then we've now moved over into more software. But a hardware solution, kind of like have tap to pay and have like taking kind of coin and stuff out of the whole system, and having everything be a little more integrated. So that's kind of where we started. And that morphed into us talking to laundromat owners day in and day out, and learning a little bit more about the business and the industry, and realizing, they don't actually have like a good point of sale solution for their vertical. Like they leveraged a Square or a Clover, or kind of like just makeshift solutions to their industry. And this is a $5 billion industry that, just in the US alone. And so it's massive. And so we said, okay, let's talk to some of the largest players in the space, of which we did, and we actually brought them on as partners into kind of building this product that we built. So we've got a point of sale business management solution. We've integrated delivery, a bunch of other, payroll. I mean, a bunch of other stuff that kind of integrates into what's now a more holistic kind of overall business management solution and point of sale. But that's kind of where we started, and now we've got about close to 1,000 laundromats, across the country, and growing, and it's a pretty cool business.
So what I hear you say that you did that was really smart was, rather than trying to reinvent the wheel, you went to another solution provider out there, like a Clover or something like that, and said, "Hey, you're not attacking this vertical. We'd like to white label what they created." And is that how did that work?
No. So sorry, what I meant was like laundromat owners were utilizing, because they had no other choice, solutions like Clover and Square and whatnot. We decided to reinvent like all of it, actually. And so we never partner with any of those folks. And we have our own, we leverage kind of third party, hardware, and
Okay.
and then actually built all the software for it, and created a point of sale solution that you see, that you tap, and you turn it around and you sign for it, and all that stuff.
Like in a coffee shop. Yeah.
Yeah. So like all that stuff is stuff that we designed and built from a software level perspective for this this vertical specifically, both dry cleaners and laundromats.
How did you manage? I don't know how you get everything done. How did you manage to build that business, which itself sounds like, could consume all of your time, while having West Agile Labs at the same time?
Yeah. So West Agile Labs, it was a business that by the time I kind of kicked off this thing with Sense, was, I'd been doing West Agile Labs for about 6 or 7 years. So we had a good infrastructure and system generally. And the other part of it is we leveraged the team in India that we have to actually build the software. And so that, that was kind of the arbitrage that, that I had, that allowed us to build much more, affordably, and really kick off a business like that. And I had other we had a team for Sense, and so I was kind of part-time, and in both, helping build that business as well.
Okay. So now this all makes complete sense. So competitive tennis, to electrical engineering, to Goldman Sachs, to Boutin e-commerce, to building outsourced offshore development, to laundromats, to daycare in San Francisco. So how do we get to daycare?
Yeah, so daycare was interesting. That was more opportunistic. I have a 7-year-old, and when I was living in San Francisco and looking for daycares at the time, I think I was very naive. Yeah, there was a woman running a home daycare, and that seemed like a really great program. And I went up to her. I'm like, oh, I'd love to join. And she's like, yeah, I've got a 18-month wait list, and and she'd been around for less than 2 years. So that was a supply and demand thing, right? I just looked at that. I'm like, the demand is insane. There's not enough supply for every, and after studying it a little bit more, for every five and a half, 6 children that needed a spot in a daycare, there was only one spot available. So, it was almost like it almost seemed like an relatively easy problem to solve in a way. It's you have the demand, you can. It's so easy to find people that want if you can create it. And so, what do I need to do?
It's fulfillment of is the harder part, right? Hiring people that, especially in an expensive city like San Francisco.
Yeah, so that's right. So one of the ideas that we actually came up with was creating a network of home daycares. And so we actually bought a building in San Francisco, and we actually let teachers live in those units for free. And then we basically and then we run the daycares out of their homes. So we're providing housing for the teachers, which obviously is a major cost of living in the city and part of their disposable income. We created more supply through that because they're working out of their homes. And so, and we're creating just generally more childcare in the city as well. So it kind of worked out to be a win-win-win situation. Teachers are actually getting, more than double their disposable income by working with us. So that allows us to also find amazing teachers and hire some of the best teachers as well, because we pay for all the housing, utilities, internet, laundry. Like, we take care of all living expenses. They don't need to pay for commute, right, to go to work. And then when they finish, they're done right after, at 5:30, and they don't have to spend an hour commuting back to a more affordable part of the Bay Area. So it was actually a pretty unique model that we kicked off, and so yeah, we've got one location in San Francisco right now, and hope to kind of grow that more over time.
It sounds amazing. How did you make the economics of that work out? And why do you think others had not come up with this model before?
I don't know. I mean, you've definitely got more traditional sort of like daycare systems, and companies like Bright Horizon that are more like behemoth like type companies. The home daycare model, I think, is a little bit different, and you kind of have to understand all the nuances to setting that up, and the liability associated with it, and all the other pieces to it. So it's there's a bit of a learning curve, but it's an interesting, and when you talk about like the business model and kind of working on it, if we had a real estate asset that was just generating, we bought a real estate asset and we were renting renting to different folks, this obviously generates, it's like taking the same exact asset and being able to generate significantly more income off of that asset. So when you think about like your return on equity, the math is very, very different. So it's kind of, it was pretty interesting.
Interesting. I want to, we're running a little short on time, but in some ways you kind of came full circle from your Goldman Sachs days to now you also have an investment fund. Again, I don't know how you manage all these things, but Open Doors Partners, which actually is not focused on any particular one vertical like tech or SaaS or something like that. You invest in different asset classes. So talk a little bit about that idea.
Yeah, it's an alternative investment fund, just focused on looking for unique investment opportunities that will generate significantly higher than market returns, and across a variety of different asset classes. So we've invested in the more traditional sort of like venture capital based businesses. We invest in a number of funds as well that typically most folks, if they were just going in individually, wouldn't get access and be able to have access into, that have historically done really well. We've invested in like a real estate private equity fund that invests in like university housing and a number of other areas as well. We've invested in a company that actually bought and purchased water dispensing machines and dispersed them across different areas that generates a pretty low risk return of 15% on your capital, which is pretty cool, and you get dividends off of that. So different kind of unique opportunities that we invested in, and the fund's done really well. I mean, we were on the exits that we have, and kind of even in today's market with our mark to market, we're generating close to 40% IRR returns, which is pretty cool.
Amazing. Pramod, this has been a lot of fun. Tell me, where can people go to connect with you and learn more about your various different initiatives?
Yeah, you hit me up on LinkedIn, and you can definitely reach out to me that way. You can look for me on westagileLabs.com. I've got my contact info there as well. Yeah, always looking to connect with interesting folks and build good relationships.
Excellent. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Rising Entrepreneurs Podcast. This episode is powered by Rise 25. Please subscribe and check out future episodes.